Hello and welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. Today we're kind of doing a collaboration video with Harvey Seidel from Harvey Talks Prison. He has his own prison YouTube channel. Harvey served 29 years in the Missouri prison system. And he's out and he's doing good, and he has his own prison YouTube channel and he's helping people and he's doing some really good things. He has a lot of great content. If you haven't checked out his channel, be sure to do so. I will leave a link in the description and I'll put a thing up somewhere so you can go check that out. We talked about a lot of different things. You know, the Missouri and Kansas systems are very, very similar in some ways, and Harvey and I only live, 2 or 3 hours apart. The Midwest prison system in general seems to have its own vibe. It doesn't have the gangs like the West Coast, the political environment of the West Coast, and it's not quite like the East Coast or the South either. It's its own kind of deal. And Harvey keeps it real in his videos. He doesn't make it out to be this tough guy thing. He's legitimately telling it how it is, and he's trying to be real with his viewers, and he's trying to help people, which I have a lot of respect for. With that said, I want to apologize in advance for any problems with video or audio quality. We did this on a Zoom call, and, we're both small YouTube channels. We don't have super expensive equipment, and we also served a bunch of time, and so sometimes figuring out what's going wrong with our setup isn't the easiest thing to do. But, we're trying to put content out, and we're trying to get better at what we do each and every day. So please keep that in mind, and I hope you enjoy the video. This is a 3-part series. This is part 1. I'm going to be releasing a new part to this series every Wednesday until its completion, so be sure to tune in next Wednesday for part 2. And Harvey also has this full series over on his channel, and he's releasing it bit by bit, I believe. But he has a lot of great content on his channel. So if you like prison stuff, if you want to hear a genuine telling of events, be sure to go check out his channel. It's really cool. But that said, let's get into the video. For some of you, he probably doesn't need any introduction. He's been hanging out on my channel down in the comments section quite a bit. He has a pretty cool YouTube channel of his own talking about prison stuff, but I will let him do his own introduction.
Hi, this is Talks Prison, prison in Missouri in 1987. Well, I got arrested in 1987. I didn't hit the prison until 1988. Spent 29 years and got out in November 2016.
How long did you do altogether?
29 days, 29 years to the day.
To the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a long time, man. That's a really long time. Well, I did 11, and, I've always wondered about what it would be like to do that much time. I've never wanted to do that much time, but I've always wondered how that would impact an individual. I mean, just doing 11, I know for me, technology changed a lot. Society changed a lot. It seems like everybody's a little bit more sensitive than they used to be. But a lot can change in almost 30 years.
I always wanted to life with somebody who had a number, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody who had like 10 years, 11 years.
It's one of those things where, you got an out date, you're going to get out eventually. Sometimes it seems like it's a long way out. When you first go down, it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you have a date, but you almost don't care because it's so far away, it doesn't seem real. You know what I mean? I can't imagine just having an indeterminate sentence where you see a parole board, but you don't know if you're going to get passed or not. You know what I mean?
I was kind of way, I just took each day as it was. You almost about it, you just go about your daily life.
Yeah, for real. You just get in a routine and you just got to take it one day at a time. If you think about what could be or what could happen, but isn't there, then you're just kind of living in a fantasy. And I used to see guys get caught up, guys who had an L after their sentence, 25 to life or 40 to life or something like that. And they would get all excited about the parole board. And a lot of them were Christian guys. And some of them were like, hey, you know, God told me that I'm going to get out this time. And then they'd get passed for 10 more years and they just looked crushed, you know. That's a hard
Yeah, I've
thing.
seen it destroyed.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine feeling like you were going to get out, you know, you went through your programs and all that, and then you get passed. So was that the first time you went to see the parole board, or were you passed before that?
That was my sixth time.
Sixth time.
I went up 60 before I got dead.
What was that like? When did you see him the first time? Was that, how many years did you have to do before you saw the board?
13 years. And I pretty much knew they was behind me, you know, the first time. So I get up there and there's three people and one's just watching you. The other one's talking and then you have another one. She was just talking all bad, you know, you've been in all these fights and this and that. And I tried to tell her I came to prison when I was young and I went to the worst one in the state. So, you know, what do you expect? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta fight. I was
causing these fights.
Yeah, you gotta fight. When you go in that young, you went in when you were 17, and so you faced a lot of the problems that I had when I went down. You know, you're young, people think that they can take advantage of you, they're going to try you out. It's one of those things. If you don't fight, then all that time you got to do, and you had a lot of time to do. You had an L after your sentence, so you don't want to be putting up with that stuff for your entire stay. And that's what happens if you don't stick up for yourself.
When I first got there, I was just like a little farm boy, I was scared and everything. And I seen all this violence going on around me. And it just came to my mind. I don't know if I'm ever getting out. I don't even know if I'm going to make it through this year, you know, if I'm going to die tomorrow. So heck with it. Nobody can say anything crazy to me because it's like that for them, you know?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you don't know if you're getting out or not, I don't know if they call it this over in Missouri, but in Kansas, we call it getting a case of the fuck it's, where you just say, fuck it. You know what? I'm here. I'm going to be here. Fuck it. You ain't going to push me around. You know, it's what you got to do.
Exactly. When I came to that conclusion, I was in the cell, just my cellie. He said, hey, man, stop spacing out. You can't be spacing out in this place, you know, not even when you're locked in the cell. And he goes, what are you tripping on anyway? So I told him, I said, we're all dying here. We're all, you know, everybody's dying every day. Guard, everybody, you know. So what do I got to lose, you know? He goes, well, that may be true. At least you won't die a punk. He goes, now let's top it and smoke one. We pulled out a joint.
Right. Yeah. I think it was the first week that I got to Ellsworth. Someone pulled up and gave me, we called them a cap of tobacco, right? And I was 17 at the time. I couldn't even buy a pack of cigarettes. And, you know, here I was 17 years old and I had a cap of tobacco someone from county jail just gave to me. And I sat down and I had a cigarette. And then I smoked a little bit of weed, probably my first couple months in Ellsworth. And then just a couple months after that, I got in trouble with the cops because I was moving a bunch of tobacco. And, you know, they caught on to me. Of course, I was being loud about it. I wasn't minding my P's and Q's. My cell stunk. And I wasn't doing it right. Of course, being young and feeling like I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and felt like I was doing something because I just got to prison and I had all this money and I had all this tobacco already. And yeah, I almost got a new case over it. So after that, I just quit, you know, and I mean, it was cool for the reason that I did it. You know, I didn't get harassed by the cops after that. You know what I mean? So it kind of worked out. But I remember on my 18th birthday, for my birthday, I had 2 cigarettes. Someone came and brought me a couple cigarettes. And that's what I did on my 18th birthday. People on your channel probably already know, and I know we weren't going to do this like an interview, but I just want to give people a little bit of context of what MSP was, because I don't want them getting the wrong idea and thinking that you're making excuses or you were just a knucklehead or something. MSP is a rough prison. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Or
We call it the walls because it's got this wall that goes all the way around. 1960, in the 1960s, it was named 7 Acres by magazine, and it was just there's no AC. There's the cells had bars in the front, and it was just every day, all day, and making excuses, and I was never a knucklehead back there. There was a few fights I started, but most of them was all in self-defense because you never knew when somebody was just going to go off on you. You never knew if he's going to. Never knew if somebody's just going to hit you from behind. I seen a guy in front of my cell, Walkman, mopping up blood from a fight that happened, and another fight broke out. The guy grabbed the mop wringer, hit the guy across the head, and almost scalped him. And the guy that was the Walkman that was cleaning up, he goes, "I ain't never going to get this clean." So it was just one thing right after another, and it was hot. In the summertime, it's real hot, very hot, especially if he's on the top. And in the wintertime, if he's on the bottom, sometimes your toe would freeze over.
yeah, that's almost the same way Lansing was. Lansing is the same way. You had 30-foot limestone walls around the place, no AC. Of course, Lansing was a little bit cooler than El Dorado was. El Dorado didn't have the bars on the front of the cell. And Lansing was nice because with those bars, we had a little bit more air movement. It was still hotter than hell, but at least we had a little bit of a draft that would come through the cells. But yeah, it was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. But over there, in the summer, did it get a little bit rougher? I know here in Kansas, in the summertime, it goes down. People are fighting left and right. It's hot. They're pissed off.
The heat, right? Right. Yeah, the heat seems to make more violence,
Yeah. It got so bad one year, they gave us an extra yard time in the afternoon so people could get out of their cells and kind of chill out a little bit because they were fighting so bad.
Yeah, a lot of it happens in the cell. It doesn't matter how long good you're with your cell. When you're hot, you're irritable. The littlest thing will set you off.
Oh yeah, man. And when you're in close quarters with someone like that and you get to know them really,
Right.
really well, every little thing that they do, sometimes that can just drive you,
I could, and I showed this. We went back to the museum, the prison tour. I could put them out like this and touch both walls.
Yeah. Lansing is the same way.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's almost like, it's just an old school way of building a prison, I think. All the old prisons that I've looked at, like I've seen pictures of Alcatraz and stuff like that. They're all like that. They're all really, really small. I think Lansing was 6x8. So 8 foot from the bars to the back wall and then 6 foot across. You can just reach out and touch both walls. Small. If you wanted to pace your cell or walk around or something,
Sure.
you had to fold your bunk up. In Hutchinson is another one of the old prisons in Kansas. It was built in the 1800s. It's still open. Behind the walls in Lansing was shut down, but in Hutch behind the walls, that's still open. And those cells are so small that you can't really walk between the bed and the desk. You can't pace the cells in Hutch. It's so small. And they tried to move the Supermax in Kansas because, El Dorado was Supermax when I was there. But then about the year I got out, around 2018, they tried to move the Supermax to Hutch. And then the feds got involved and said, no, you can't make this a Supermax facility. Those cells are too small. You can't double bunk guys in there because they started double bunking Supermax here. And they're like, no, you're not putting 2 people in these cells for 23 hours a day. You're just not going to do it, But yeah, man, I really like your channel. That was a really good video that you put out last week when you were talking about people getting mad over you talking about your case essentially. And you popped up in my feed on Quora, and I was looking at some of the questions that you answered or some of the things that you said, and you were getting some hate, and all you were doing was telling the truth about what you did.
Right. Yeah, that's you know, like I said, the video, most of it was positive and good comments, but you had those ones in there that just said this crazy stuff in there.
Yeah. Well,
I finally had enough.
I don't know if everyone on my channel has heard your story, but would you mind kind of sharing what you went to prison for?
Yeah, when I was in 1987, my brother was 4. I had a distant cousin that was 22, and he was always beating on my brother and stuff, and then just picking on him, and that's all. That's all I thought it was first. Then he was aiming guns at him, and I found out about the abuse. I told my parents. My mom didn't. She thought because I hated the guy, I was just making this stuff up. He wasn't coming forward. He was. I wouldn't have told you if I thought he's going to tell everybody. I told a retired guy who was a friend of the family, and he just turned around and told my parents. They just got mad at me. I took matters in my own hand, and shot the guy. But I got a life sentence. That is kind of my own fault because they offered me 25 years. And, they charged me with murder and everything, but they charged me with armed criminal action too. And they offered me 25 years. But I tried escaping. So they took that off the table. So
I didn't know that you tried to escape. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, from Phelps County Jail.
Oh, I got you. That's tempting, man.
Yeah.
Especially when they're constantly transporting you. I thought about, booking it a couple times because I was looking at a large amount of time for what I did. But I find it really interesting that there are so many parallels between our two stories and why we went to prison. A lot of folks on my channel know that I shot a guy that was an alleged pedophile. Now, I used to not talk very much about that because I didn't want to get a defamation of character suit, but as it turns out, you can't be sued for talking about a dead guy. But for me, it was a very similar thing. You think that you're doing what you need to do at the time, right or wrong, is not what it's about. It's something that you feel strongly about, and you see something going on and nobody else is doing anything about it. And you feel like you need to do something. Right. It's not glorifying it. It's not saying, hey, look at me. I'm this badass tough guy. It's sometimes you just have to do what you feel you have to do.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because the fact of the matter is, saying that I never should have went to prison because I took a life. That's against the law.
Right.
The thing of it, I didn't stalk him and hunt him down like they was trying to say I did. But yeah, I know what I did was not right, but regret what I did. I will never regret protecting my brother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. There are things that I'm okay with going to prison for. And once again, it's not justifying it, and it's not saying that's the right thing to do or the right way to be. It's how I am. And there is some stuff like doing something stupid, getting busted with some dope or something like that and losing half my life over that. I'm not cool with that. But if I go to prison because I'm protecting someone that I care about, I'm all for that. I'm okay with that. I can go do my time and sleep well at night.
Yeah, the person that you protected is still alive.
Right.
That's the way I. But these people that was on Quora, they got one of them got talking about how pedophilia should be legalized and everything. I just had enough, and that's why I made that video.
Yeah, it's It's a weird subject, man. We live in some pretty crazy times. We're both from the Midwest, and I'm assuming that you were brought up according to traditional values. I know I was, and right's right and wrong's wrong, and that ain't right. I can't I can't say that any other way. I'm not okay with it. I don't like it, and I'm never going to agree with the view of people who say it's a sexual orientation. I'm just not.
Oh yeah, it's not. I don't know how you can even say that. I want people to understand is, like you said, I'm not glorifying this. I'm not bragging about it. Uh, and I'm not trying to get other people to do that. You see somebody that needs protecting in your family or something, try not to try to, you know, go other options besides what I did. I'm
Right.
gonna use that as a last resort, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, because it's no good, you know, it hurts everybody.
Well, yeah. And you were talking on there about how your brother passed away while you were locked up. And for me, I lost my father while I was locked up.
Yeah,
And
tell
while
me
I
about that. Yeah.
believed in what I did at the time, I would give anything to have my dad back or to have been there when my father was on his deathbed. My sisters were there for him. My mom
Right.
was there with him when he was in the hospital. Everyone was there but me. And the last thing that he did before they loaded him up in the ambulance, he told a paramedic, he said, "Hey, you guys got to get me fixed up and get me back home because tomorrow's visitation and I'm supposed to go see my son." And that man, he cared about me with his dying breath, and I couldn't be there for him. And it's not just how I was affected by that, but the man I shot had a family. He had a mom and dad, he had a sister, and they never did anything to me. They never hurt me, but what I did hurt them. It affected
Right.
them. It affected the community. Now, this high school that I went to back in the day, they didn't have metal detectors. They didn't have any security. They didn't have anything like that. But shortly after I got locked up, now these kids are getting patted down. They have to go through metal detectors. They have a school cop that harasses them because they felt that teens were being violent. And I know school shootings and stuff have a lot to do with that, but I also feel that I lent, you know, to that paranoia.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. And I said this in one of my videos too. The guy I shot, he had a sister, two sisters, a brother, a family, and they don't believe that about their brother. They don't think he was a mean guy or anything. But he was. But you can't blame them for. They loved their brother. So they
Right.
was hurt too. So you can't blame them for that, and I don't blame them for being mad at me. I'm not mad at them about that. I try to explain to them. But I can never be angry.
You have to do what you feel is right in any given situation. But the other side of that is nothing happens in a vacuum. You can't do something that is only going to affect you. Someone's going to be affected by it. And
Oh yeah.
that's the other side of it.
And I didn't even think about it because I was 17. I didn't even think about how many people it was going to affect. I didn't even crossed my mind until after the fact, and then I just started seeing how many people it affected. And even years later, it still affects me. And I'm like, man, I missed it. Like you said, the community too.
Yeah.
Little small town I was from, grew up with, it changed their whole views on a lot of things. Not just me and the justice system, but still it affected everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always those ripple effects that are going to affect people that you never even thought of. But then there's also the effects for your loved ones and stuff like that. My mom, the year I went to prison, my mom had a horse, and they had a parade in town, and everyone around here, they'll take their horses and stuff through the parade. And my mom wrote a bunch of Bible verses in paint on the side of her horse and rode the horse through the parade. And there were people in the crowd shouting at her, what are those prison numbers? Because she had like John 3:16 and stuff written on the side of the horse. And they were trying to make fun of her and stuff because of something I did. Nothing that she did wrong. And I heard about that from inside my prison cell. She wrote me a letter about it, and I remember getting that letter and opening it up, and I just felt like the worst guy in the world.
People are mean, man.
They are. And you deal with it. You deal with it the best you can. And even now that we're out, I know we talked about this the other day on the phone. There are so many people that want to hate on you, even though you're not doing anything wrong now. I've had people tell me that I should have got the death penalty and I shouldn't be walking around. If I took somebody else's life, someone needs to take my life.
Or that you should still be in prison or something like that.
Yeah.
I've heard it all. I think it's a good thing that both you and I have channels out here in the Midwest, because it seems like they're all like in Virginia or Florida or California. And yeah, those people out there can reach people out here. But people in the Midwest, they want to hear from people from the Midwest. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a completely different environment out here.
All right. So I think you and I are doing a good thing. And like I said, I love your content. Anytime I get a notification, of course, I don't always get notifications, and it's not just your channel, it's other channel too. That I always try to watch your videos, And I think
I do the same. I remember seeing you down in the comments, and I went and started watching some of your videos, man. And I'm like, wow, we come from a very similar background. We live, not extremely far away.
A couple hundred miles.
Yeah, it's about the same environment, So it's I don't know. I think what you're doing is really good, and it's all about helping people. It's all about giving back. It's not something to shock people. It's more to inform them, hey, yes, you can fuck up and you can end up in the same place I was,
There's people you watching your channel that has somebody incarcerated. So you're helping them understand what they went through or what they are going through,
There are people who have been in the exact same situation that we were in. There have been people who have had someone victimize a family member or a friend or someone who's close to them, and they're in the same mindset. But for real, I wouldn't recommend someone go do what I did, because I lost a good portion of my life. I was a junior in high school, and I could have done something completely different with my life. I was going to go to UTI and become an automotive technician. I wanted to have a hot rod shop with my dad. That was a plan. And I never got to do any of that. I wasn't there for my family for over a decade. And you can never get that time back. And I'm sure, you did almost, 3 times the amount of time I did. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I do that. Like you said earlier, it affects everybody. And so if you feel you have to do something to protect a loved one, just, make sure that's the last choice, because like you said, it affects everybody, affects you more than you realize it will, It's not just like, oh, you got rid of this guy, you do some prison time or something. No, it's everybody around you is affected. Like you said, it's time away from your loved ones, everything.
Yeah. And it's not just prison time. I'm sure you've been through some stuff. It's one thing to be sentenced to go to prison, but what happens inside of prisons, that's not something that you were sentenced to. You weren't sentenced to get beat up. You weren't sentenced to get stabbed. You weren't sentenced to get raped. And that happens to people all the time in prison. It's just a matter of whether or not you're in the right place at the right time.
Right. It's not whether you're, it's not just being locked up in a cell. You have to deal with the other prisoners. You have to deal with the guards, the cops, whatever you want to call them, the 5-0.
Yeah. And
You have some people.
even though the politics are different out here, I don't know how the politics are over in Missouri, but in Kansas, they're still there. There's not going to be someone who makes you join a gang, but there are big gangs in prison and there are big fights all the time. And you don't want to be caught in the middle of that.
No, huh? And the thing about it in Missouri is I've been to people that's in prison and some that just got out, and it's changing in Missouri now. It's almost getting where you have to join a gang, which is really messed up. So people need to think about that before they make some choice that might end up in prison,
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're young, that's rough.
Right.
You're going to be a crash test dummy.
Exactly. And then that's what a lot of these do when you join them. These young people join them. They send them out on the crash, like you saying, to go out and do this stupid stuff.
They don't want to go to the hole and lose what they got going on. They got this young guy. They think, oh, okay, well, I can take advantage of him. I can make him do whatever and earn his stripes. I already got my time in. I already got my stripes. So I'm going to have this young buck go and smash dude's head. They're going to do it.
Right. And, they don't care. When the person goes through the hole, and in many cases, they won't take care of them while they're in the hole. Like back then, we could have tobacco. You can't have tobacco there no more. But like if your partner went to the hole, you usually send them tobacco or something, make sure they're all right down there. But a lot of times these people don't do that, It's like they're out of sight, out of mind,
Yeah, it's one of those good looking out. See you later.
Right.
I'll catch you when you're out of the hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Does Missouri have a incentive level system or anything like that? Or can you just have your TV and stuff right off the bat?
They do it in Potosi. You mean where you had to slowly get your stuff?
Yeah.
Yep. Potosi is a punishment camp in prison. And when you go there, you start out in the hole. And they got these different levels you go through. And each one you get a little bit more red. You may get a little bit more of your property, your finding in population. It's kind of like a step up program.
I got you. When I went down, Kansas was like that as a whole. You started out in RDU, which I'm sure you guys have something that's like RDU, a diagnostic facility. But in RDU, you couldn't have anything. All you had was hygiene stuff, and you could write 2 letters a month. But beyond that, you didn't have anything coming. You couldn't buy canteen. You couldn't make phone calls and stuff. And then you get your level 1, and then you can order canteen and you can make phone calls to your immediate family. And then when you get level 2, you can buy your electronics and buy more canteen and stuff like that. So that's what I was curious about, because what they'll do in Kansas, they'll catch a guy who's coming straight out of RDU who doesn't have anything and can't have anything. And they'll just send him on a dummy mission because he doesn't have anything anyway. But then it takes him longer after he gets out of the hole to get all his stuff. But a lot of guys will do 5 years, 6 years. I've seen people go as long as 7 or 8 years without ever getting their electronics because they get sent on these dummy missions every time they get out of the hole. They've been doing it that way since they got out of RDU.
That's crazy. Post is the only thing, the closest thing I can think of is got that we're talking about. But yeah, we have the diagnostic centers, but at a different prison. If you get and they send you to prison, they send you to a diagnostic center first. And they got like 3 in state now. And that's where they evaluate you and decide where they're going to send you and everything.
Right.
But I don't think you can have, if I remember, have too much there. You can't have a TV and that. It's only after you get sent to the regular prison.
When you first got to prison, if you were behind the walls, I'm guessing you were max custody, right?
Yeah, it's a maximum prison, yeah. Now, they did have a little section outside the prison. It's like a fenced-off area. That was called an L hall, and it's for people that was not, it's going to be released. But the main part, yeah, it was. And they had a section in it that they called Supermax, which is where they just put you in there with like this paper gown.
Yeah, we have those here, and those are called MRA cells. Those suck.
Oh, was they?
Mm-hmm. Supermax here is just 23-hour lockup, basically just like being in the hole. But if you get in trouble, like serious trouble, like it's too much for the hole, they'll put you in an MRA cell, and they can only hold you there 72 hours legally. And you're basically in your underwear, and sometimes you'll be in a paper gown or in a suicide smock, but you don't have anything in that cell. You can't have a blanket. A lot of times you don't have a mat. You're just laying on a piece of concrete. It sucks. You know, it's funny you're talking about the cops. I was just thinking about this story that a friend of mine that I did time with named Billy, he was telling me this story the other day. Well, not the other day. He tells this story all the time, but he was in Lansing behind the walls at one point too. And whenever in Lansing, whenever the cops do rounds, someone will call it out at the front of the run. You know, you'll hear them say on one from the front or on two from the back. And there's this cop, he was doing rounds and he was on the top tier. He was 3 tiers up. And he's doing rounds and he got into it with a guy who was living up there, you know, some dude who was up there in his cell. And for whatever reason, the cops started giving him a hard time. And so Billy is down on the bottom run. Billy's my buddy. And all of a sudden, this cop comes flying down the run from the top. The dude threw him off the tier, and he splats on the flag down on the bottom tier. And dude calls out, on one from the top, just like that, man.
Hey, you guys called the bottom walk the flag too?
Yeah. Right? Yep. Yeah, we sure do. That was something we were talking about the other day. We have the same terminology, it seems. You know, everybody on the West Coast, like you were saying the other day, they call the prison wine, they call it Pruno, and we call it hooch. And bottom run is the flag. It's kind of crazy how alike we are, but I suppose being in close proximity, you know what I mean? We're different states, but I think we're close enough together that the prison culture is very, very similar. It's something where I feel like if you went to prison in Kansas, you'd already know more than half of it. You know what I mean? How it works and the terminology and how people move, because all your stories seem really, really similar to what I've been through.
Right.
But I was going to ask you, and not to change the subject at all. I was just really curious, and I have a short attention span, so if I don't ask the question, then I'll probably forget about it. But you did almost 30 years, and I know after doing just 11, adjusting to life out here has been really tough. I don't know when you got out, but you seem really well adjusted. Has it been a challenge?
Yes, it has. And not so much the technology aspect of it either, because I got used to that after a little bit. There was a lot of things in technology I don't know, but it's more just being free, you know, adjusting to being free. I like in restaurants, I want to be with my back to the wall if possible. I don't like being in crowded stores. I mean, I'm a little antsy, you know, start feeling on my waist. I mean, I really do, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm the same way.
I don't like people, especially people I don't know, being like really up against me, you know. So I don't like crowded stores.
I think the hardest thing for me was the culture shock, because it was almost like going to a different country. You know, people out here, they have a completely different set of rules that they live by. And there, your word is what matters. How you carry yourself is what matters. But out here, it's not so much that. And out here, if somebody calls you a bitch, you don't necessarily have to bust their teeth in. You know what I mean? And I don't know about you, but for me, that's a challenge.
But yeah, it's before you go to prison too, you know? Like people thought a certain way, did things a certain way, and then when you get out, they're doing things differently. Like my stepdaughter thinks it's funny. I'll go across the street to talk to my neighbor. She thinks I should just message it, you know, but I'm used to going over it and talking. She goes, why? Well, you can just message it. And, but, you know, I'm just used to, that's the way I was used to doing things.
Right.
You know? And also, I think you go to prison, you kind of think the same way as when you went in. I mean, of course, you change your views on things in separate prison. You change as a person, grow up and stuff. But you kind of see things when you leave as when you went in. And so when you get out, it's like, even if you got TV, you can see things changing. It's still a shock to you when you get out, you know.
How have you been dealing with that? What have you done to make that easier for you? For me, it was a support system, having people around me that could help me out, you know what I mean, and keep me on the right track.
Oh, same here, same here. And I tell you something else. I didn't realize this was going to happen, but making these videos has been kind of therapeutic for me.
Yeah, me too. I get that 100%. 100%. Especially the supportive community that we have on YouTube. You know, I never thought when I started making videos that I would have so many people who genuinely cared about me and how I was doing and gave me so much positive feedback.
I know. Yeah, I'm the same way. You know, it was just, I thought, well, I'll just come on and help people, you know, try to help people, try to help people. I never knew that it was going to be helpful to me too.
Right. Right, they change. They change.